For this week's topic, we will use the analogy of the neurosolar system. In this mind map, the central command acts like the ship's neural hub, steering our thoughts, emotions, and behaviours. The major systems orbit like planets, and dotted lines show their relationships, as do arrows. Coloured stars mark key functional connections across this vast neuro universe. First, the central nervous system, our main command chip. It begins with the spinal cord, a fast response signal highway linking brain and body. Above it sits the brain, our galaxy's most complex structure. We start with the hemispheres. The left brain specializes in logic and language, the right in creativity and spatial awareness. Above it sits the cerebral cortex, divided into 4 lobes. First, we have the frontal lobes, which is responsible for executive functioning, working memory, behavior, and movement, and it consists of the prefrontal cortex and the primary motor cortex. Then we have the parietal lobes, which is responsible for sensory processing, the occipital lobes, which is visual processing, and then the temporal lobes, which looks at things like hearing, learning, and feelings. Then we move on to the limbic system, which is the emotional core. It has the thalamus, a sensory relay hub, the hypothalamus that regulates internal balance, the amygdala that detects fear and threat, and the hippocampus that stores new memories. Close by, the basal ganglia refine movement and routine. Then we have the cerebellum, which looks at balance and coordination. And then we look at the brainstem, which includes the pons, midbrain, and medulla. And it is responsible for alertness, breathing, and heartbeat. Next, we have the endocrine system, which looks at a hormonal messenger network. It shapes mood, metabolism, and growth. Then we have the peripheral nervous system. Within this is the somatic system for conscious movement and the autonomic system for involuntary functions. Within this is the sympathetic system, which activates fight or flight, and then we have the parasympathetic, which promotes rest and digest. And orbiting all of this is our neuroimaging techniques, which is a cosmic observational window shown in transparent colour. It determines different scans and techniques for measuring brain activity, and each of the coloured stars represent relationships and connections with different areas of the brain throughout this mind map. And you can find what each of these different scans measure by looking at the legend below. Thank you for this week's tutorial, and we look forward to seeing you next week.